It's time. It is finally here. We are going to be talking about the blind man at Bethsaida. I have been talking this one up for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it is finally time to come back to the blind man at Bethsaida and do it. Welcome to the Then and Now Bible Study. I'm Pastor Trey, and man, y'all know I've been excited for this one. Y'all know that I've been talking about the blind man at Bethsaida for a while. And we skipped over it because I wanted to kind of fill in some of the stuff, make sure we understand what happened before it and what happened after it, because that is it's so crucially important to understanding this event. And again, super excited about this one because whenever I was praying over and trying to decide what book I wanted to do a Bible study over, this particular event was one of those tipping points for me. I said, yes, Mark. It was like this. The Syrophoenician woman, the Syrophoenician, that was another big one that I was like, I want to do Mark. Jesus cursing the olive tree, which we'll get to later on, was another one that I was like, these are all these ones that are in Mark that are really hard to grasp, to wrestle with, really hard to understand, and it really takes an understanding kind of Mark's writing style, the way Mark presents things to really get these. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. The blind man at Bethsaida was like, for a long time in my Christian walk, I didn't want to deal with it. It bothered me. I didn't like this one. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to, like, why, why, what's up with this? And it was like one of those things. I wished it wasn't even there because it messed up, it kind of messed up my thought process about Jesus. And I didn't like this one at all. But whenever I kind of went around and started understanding how Mark kind of presents things and how he does it, and started getting kind of that cultural context, contextual understanding of what Mark is doing in his gospel, I was like, oh, I get it. All right, so let's do it. We've talked enough about it. Let's jump into the passage. Let's see here. Let's do screen display. All right. Jesus heals the blind man at Bethsaida. All right, so we are going back. All right, because we skipped this one for a couple weeks, and now we're coming back. And I want to read the passage, and I want first off, I want to tell y'all some of the problems I used to have with this passage and why this passage bothered me so much kind of back in the day. All right, so they came to Bethsaida, and some of the people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people, but they look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home saying, "Don't even go into the village." All right. So this was my problem with this that I have for like, why did Jesus have to attempt this one twice? Why did, like, the first time Jesus tried this, like, he didn't get it. Like, he sort of made him heal. He sort of healed him, but he didn't all the way heal him. And the guy wasn't completely, his eyes weren't completely made right. Like, he was still nearsighted, I guess you could say. He says, "I see people, they look like trees walking around." It's kind of funny. Like, my eyesight's not really bad, but I kind of get that because if I walk around campus and I don't have my glasses, everybody's this is like a humanoid figure in front of me that I can't make out any facial features until I actually get up close to them. But like from here to my computer screens, I can see fine. That's why I don't necessarily have to wear my glasses when I'm shooting these videos. But when I'm walking around, I can't tell who people are from a distance, unless they have some like weird distinctive feature that's like, well, he's got that thing, Just anyhow. Not that I know anybody like that. I just anyhow. So I kind of get this. So, but what bothered me was this is the almighty, all-powerful God of the universe who spoke everything into creation, doing a miracle. Why can't he get it right the first time? Mark, what are you doing? You are messing up my idea and my thought process of Jesus, and you are putting something in here that I don't like because I have a really nice, neat theological thought process about Jesus, and you are interrupting that by bringing in this like two-phase miracle where Jesus didn't quite get it right the first time. Like, I struggled more with this one than like the Syrophoenician woman, than the olive tree. Like, I really like this particular scripture really, really, really bothered me. And some of y'all have probably read it, maybe some of y'all have read it before, and y'all go, yeah, it's never bothered me because I never kind of thought about it like that. And maybe that's the overthinker in me a little bit. But yeah, what's up with this? Why did it take Jesus 2 shots to get this one? Why? What's up with that? What's up with this entire deal? Right? This is just weird, and I don't like it. Well, I didn't like it. I like it now because now I've learned what's up with it. What's up with it? And what else is amazing about this is actually, this whole section that we have been in for the past couple weeks is like the fulcrum of the book of Mark, where the book of Mark teeters on this kind of section, kind of starting with pretty much starting with the feeding of the 4,000, and then the yeast of the Pharisees, the blind man at Bethsaida, Peter declaring Jesus as the Messiah, Jesus predicting his birth, the way of the cross, and the transfiguration. These events together create kind of the fulcrum of the book of Mark, that the book of Mark kind of teeters on. And on this side of that fulcrum, you have the early ministry of Jesus, and on this side of that fulcrum, you have the march to Jerusalem, where Jesus is heading to the cross. And this is the center point. This is the fulcrum, and the very tippy top of that fulcrum is Jesus heals the blind man at Bethsaida. The blind man at Bethsaida is the tippy top tip of the fulcrum. This is the way I understand the book of Mark, and many others understand the book of Mark. The blind man at Bethsaida is the thing that Mark uses to be the center turning point of his gospel. All right, and it is the reason that I skipped it. It's so crucially important to understand the rest of that fulcrum. The rest of the events that go on are so crucially important to understanding this event. We cannot get this event, like pulling it out of the context that it's in and trying to go, what's up with that? Because then we come up with questions. We're stuck with questions that we don't have answers for. We are stuck with questions of like, why did that take Jesus 2 shots to do that miracle? Well, it didn't. He did it that way for a reason, and we're going to get into that reason. Okay, and so with this, as I have been iterating and reiterating from the start of this, the book of Mark We are following the disciples' journey of seeing clearly who Jesus is. The book of Mark starts off with Mark making a proclamation to his readers or to his hearers who Jesus is, that Jesus is the Messiah, and that he is the suffering Savior. He is the Isaiah Messiah, the one that is coming to be broken, that is to carry the sin of all people. Mark, in the very first verses, lets his readers, lets his hearers know this is who Jesus is. So there's no question to those hearing or reading this gospel on who Jesus is. Then after that, once he lets us know who he is, he lets us start following this journey of watching the disciples discover who Jesus is. Watching the disciples, watching the revelation of who Jesus truly is happen for the disciples. And it is a progression. We watch this progression that the disciples go through, where they start seeing more and more. Every time something happens, they start getting a clearer and clearer and clearer picture of who Jesus is. And here at this point, Mark is, through this miracle, Mark has strategically placed this here to go, all right, this is an example of what's going on with the disciples. All right, this blind man at Bethsaida represents the entire narrative of what's going on in this gospel. All right, Jesus comes out and all right. We'll zoom in, then we'll zoom back out. How about that? So as we look at what's going on around this, we had the feeding of the 4,000. So Jesus is teaching, and he, goes to his place, and he tells his disciples, hey, give these folks something to eat. And they should have known that this was a layup. They had already gotten the cheat sheet from this one. Jesus had already done the feeding of the 5,000, where it's nearly same exact situation, and he tells the disciples, "You feed them," and they drop the ball on this. Now this is like the retest. Okay, like he gave them the test, they failed the test. They didn't know what was up. Now this is the retest. This is the second chance. This is on you. It is you. I want you to feed these people. And still, verse 4. But his disciples answered, "Where in this remote place can we get enough bread to feed them?" We've literally done this before. We've literally. You've seen this one happen before, but yet you still don't get it. Where are we going to get bread? Jesus, what's up? So anyhow, they jump in a boat, and they go, and while they are verse 11, it says the Pharisees came to him and asked for a sign, and no, I'm not giving you a sign. You're not going to get a sign. All right, the Pharisees, the disciples aren't seeing it. Now the Pharisees want a sign. No sign's going to be given. Now he comes in, and they are in the boat, and they are crossing over, and this event here about the yeast of the Pharisees. It says the disciples have forgotten to bring bread except for one loaf that they had with them in the boat. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. Okay, so he is referring back up here to this. Like this, I want a sign. I'm not going to believe unless I get a sign. And not just this, but also all of the things that the Pharisees were doing, the legalism, all of the things. And Jesus is talking about that. He is talking about the blindness of the Pharisees. And then also keep in mind that, we talked earlier in the chapter or earlier in the book about the Jesus teaching in parables. And Jesus saying the reason I'm teaching in parables is because there are those that are not going to be privy. They're not going to be able to see. They're not going to be able to comprehend who I am and what I'm talking about. And so I am not coming with lofty language that will be understood by the religious elite. I am coming with language of the commoners that is understood by people of common means, that the religious elite won't get. And so he is here. You're not going to get a sign. And it is pointing out, it is highlighting, it is putting a spotlight on the fact that the Pharisees are blind to who Jesus is. They are absolutely clueless. They cannot see who Jesus is. All right, so he's pointing he's highlighting that. And so now they get in the boat, and Jesus is talking about that incident. He is talking about spiritual things. He is talking about he's talking about the things of the kingdom of God. And he's talking about, hey, don't be like the Pharisees. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees that demand a sign, that are only looking here at worldly things and religiosity. I don't know if that's a word, but legalism. Watch out for that. And the disciples don't get it. They think he's talking about that because they didn't bring bread. And they discuss this one another and says it's because we have no bread. Aware of the discussion, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? You have eyes, but fail to see. All right? You see how Mark is setting this up? You have eyes, but you fail to see. And you have ears, and you fail to hear. Don't you remember when I broke 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many basketfuls did you pick up? 12, they replied. It says, and when I broke 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? And they answered, 7. And he said to them, do you still not understand? And so what we have here, we have the Pharisees, blind, completely blind to who Jesus is. We have here the disciples who are starting to get it, kind of get it. They are not blind to who Jesus is, but they don't see it. They don't get it. If the picture of Jesus was clear, crystal clear, they're seeing Jesus walking around like he's a tree. It's just a type of who Jesus should be. They still don't see clearly who Jesus is. They're still not quite getting it. They're starting to get it. They're not quite getting it. They still have this veil over their eyes where they don't quite get who Jesus is. So let's go to immediately after this. They go to Caesarea Philippi. It says Jesus and his disciples went to the village around Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" And they said, some people say John the Baptist. Others people say Elijah, and still others say the prophet. So here we go. Here are there are those clearly that think Jesus is a nobody. The Pharisees, blind. He says there are others who recognize that Jesus is from God. Okay, they recognize the message of Jesus is from God. But they think that it's John the Baptist, or they think that it's Elijah or the prophets. So they sort of see who Jesus is, but not quite. And in verse 29, he says, but what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? And Peter answered, you are the Messiah. Oh, now as a reader or a hearer, especially in the ancient context where this wouldn't have been like for us, this is like, what in the world's going on here? I don't get it because we read it by ourselves. But in the ancient context, they would have been more, they would have understood this structure a little bit more, right? So in the ancient context, especially, if the theory is that Mark may have been a script for an orator to recite. And so they're hearing this back to back to back to back. They're not, it's not like they're reading a chapter a day. They're sitting around, potentially, possibly, they're sitting around and listening to an orator go through this. And so as the orator goes through this, they're having the language about sight. They're having that the Pharisees don't get it. The disciples kind of get it. They're not quite there. Then they have this event of this blind man who's blind, but then Jesus does something. Then he partially sees, and then Jesus reveals completely exactly who he is. All right. And so this is what's going on. And so now they get to this part, and they're going, okay, all right, these guys sort of see who Jesus is. They recognize the divinity of him. They recognize that he is from God, but they don't get it. They're going back to the thing that Mark just said. They're like, these other people are like they see Jesus like the blind man saw, where he just looked like trees walking around. And then you hear Peter say, you are the Messiah. And as a hearer or reader, you go, oh, Peter gets it. He sees Jesus clearly for who he is. But then you realize, oh, Peter doesn't actually see that either. And so, this is so brilliant. Oh, this is so good. Jesus is so, because then we get down to here. Jesus predicts his own breath. So we're, as a hearer, as a reader, thinking that Peter has it. We're thinking that Peter has gotten the total, complete healing. The scales have fallen off of his eyes, and he sees Jesus clearly for who Jesus is. But then this happens. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed after 3 days and rise again. He spoke plainly about this. And then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at the disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get ye behind me, Satan. You do not have the concerns of God in man, but merely human concerns." So we're thinking, oh, Peter's got it. He realizes that he's the Messiah. But then we go, no, Peter is still seeing Jesus like the blind man, where he's seeing Jesus like trees walking around. Like he gets it. He gets that Jesus is the Messiah, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And then then Jesus goes in and he explains what it means. The way of the cross. If anyone's going to be my disciple, let him take up his cross and follow me. Whoever loses their life for me in the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world but yet forfeit their soul? All right, and so we're getting this. So now we're like, okay, Peter, the disciples don't get it. They don't see Jesus clearly for who he is. But then we have the transfiguration. This is after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain where they were all alone. And there he was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anybody in the world could bleach them. And before he Before them appeared Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. And the whole, and then again, this, it says a cloud appeared and covered them, and a voice came from the cloud. This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him. So now we could say that this is the point where Jesus says, now open their eyes up to who he is, that I am God in the flesh. And now the revelation of who I am is becoming even more clear. Even more. You started off where you kind of understood who I am. You started off where I looked like the who Jesus is was, you were there. You realized I was powerful. You realized I was a great rabbi. You realized I dealt with authority. You realized I had authority over demons. You realized I could forgive sins. I could calm storms. I could raise people from the dead. Right? So you had this idea of who I was, but it wasn't clear. It wasn't completely clear. And even though I'm trying to get you to this point where it clears things up, and you still don't have it, and then you're getting closer to realizing who I am. You're getting closer to your eyes being completely open, but you're not quite there yet. Now Jesus takes them up onto the Mount of Transfiguration and shows them exactly who he is. Oh man, this stuff is good. Oh, this is so good. But hey, listen. So you think here, oh, they've got it. Their eyes are open. They see Jesus for who he is. Nah, we still got some work to do. Right? When this isn't the end of the gospel, we still have some more work to do, because the disciples still don't get it. They're getting closer. That image of who Jesus is getting clearer, right? They still don't got it. And they're still learning who he is. And so this is, the blind man at Bethsaida it encapsulates this idea of not just seeing Jesus, but seeing Jesus clearly. Not just knowing Jesus, but knowing Jesus. There's a difference between seeing and seeing clearly, right? Like, I can see, but I don't see clearly. And it's crazy. Like, when your eyes start going bad, like you realize it, that your eyes are going bad. Especially if you've never had I had like eagle eyes up until you hit 40 and that check engine light comes on, right? And just stuff starts breaking. So, and now, that's my case. I had eagle eyes my whole life, and then I hit 40, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm watching TV, and I'm like, why are they putting the print on the TV so small these days? I can hardly read it. With TV, the print was the same size, right? I just couldn't read it. Why have they started making street signs, the writing on street signs so small? I can't read it. What's going on? Why are these street signs so small? They're not. They're not. But you don't realize that. You don't realize like how bad your eyes are getting. And then you go and you get glasses. And especially if you get the prescription dialed in, and you're like, oh my gosh, wow, my sight was a little bit worse than I thought it was, yeah, and but so there's a big difference between seeing and seeing clearly, and so that's the ancient context, that's the then context. The now context is the same. And again, it kind of goes back to a couple weeks ago of who is Jesus to you. But I want to twist this just a little bit. It's not just about having a right mindset of who Jesus is. Because I'm going to tell you, the disciples had the right answers. They were, oh yeah, he's the Messiah. They've known this, right? They've known Jesus was the Messiah. but it starts going from I get it, to well, I get it. It's going from a continuous process of Jesus, expose who you are to me. I'm not happy. I'm not okay with the amount of knowledge that I have about you right now. I want to know you more. I want to know more about you. I want to see more clearly who you are and what you're about. I'm my goal, my drive in life is to understand you better. I'm not okay. Jesus said, do you see, here with this blind man, he says, do you see anything? He says, yeah, I see. I see. He looked up and I says, I see they look like trees walking around. And there's the guy didn't even ask. The guy wasn't like. I mean, he was completely blind. So I mean, this was an upgrade, right? I mean, I can see something. I can see people. They look like trees walking around. So I mean, I can probably get around myself, and I can not run into things, and probably I can probably function in society better with just this. But that's not what Jesus wanted from him. Jesus wanted he wanted him to see everything clearly. His sight was restored. His eyes were opened. Is this what God wants for us? He don't want us to have like this weird, obscure idea of who he is and what his kingdom is about. This doesn't have to be a mystery. He wants us to see clearly, and he wants us to see him clearly. And so my challenge to you is to have that same desire. God, I want to see you clearly. And I want to see your word clearly. And I want to know you clearly. And I'm not okay with just having a superficial knowledge about you. I'm not okay with just having a superficial relationship with you. I want to know you. I want to see you clearly for who you are. And you know what? That might mean allowing Jesus to challenge you on some of your thoughts. That's just what you're going to have to do. That might mean that whenever you begin seeing Jesus more clearly, you're going to have to do things that you don't think. Because he says, hey, listen, don't even go in the village. He says, go home. Don't even go in the village. I should have researched this, but I'm assuming that, it's just being that this is there's not a ceremonial washing that he has to do like if it was a leper, So he could just go straight home. He said, don't even go in the village. I don't want people to know about it. Just go home. And so the guy's like, can't even go jumping around and telling people, right? But he says, hey, go home. So not just do I want to know you, man. I want not just I want to see you and have an idea about you, have you part of my life. I want to see every aspect of you. I want to know Jesus and know him intimately and personally. And I'm not okay with a superficial knowledge. I'm not okay with just enough to get by. I want to know the man that died for my sins. I want to know the God who left his seat in heaven to become human. All right. I've been looking forward to this one. Let me jump to my other screen and we'll get done with it. Well, hold on. Let me hit the right. There we go. All right, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed that. If you did, like, share, do all the YouTube stuff. Give it, let a friend that's like, hey, I know this guy, he gets overly excited about the Bible, and that's okay. I want you to too. You should, because this is cool stuff, right? It's pretty cool. So leave a comment. Like if this is like one of those things that you kind of like for me, whenever I studied this, and listen, guys, I studied this. This is other people's research. This is not me being like, oh yeah, when I read this, I saw this. I did not. Okay, this is other people's research. And that I read and I researched it and I was benefited from it. And now you're benefiting from it. But whenever I read this and it was revealed to me, I was right. And if that's kind of your response, hey, leave a comment. Because I've been really excited about this and I hope that some of you watching this did have that moment, as we've kind of talked about this. And this is the thing about this blind man at Bethsaida. It is as it is kind of the center of the chiasm. You know, I'm not going to get into what a chiasm is right now, but my guys at church definitely know what a chiasm is. And so as you go through the book of Mark, the whole book follows this. Like we see, and it is it's not up until the end of the book, the original ending, and we're still wondering, do they really get who Jesus is? And again, I'm gonna stop this. Mark has two endings. There's a short ending and then there's a long ending. And the short ending is like what's considered the original ending. And I'm probably going to stop at the original ending. I don't know. We'll see. But especially the original ending. You know, but I don't want to get into talking about that because I'm going to steal thunder from when we get to the original ending. Anyhow. Oh, man. Anyhow. We'll see y'all next week, and do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, and I'm just going to be excited about this one for a while. Probably not sleep good tonight because this is one that I love, and I nerd out on this kind of stuff. Anyhow, love you guys, and we will hit this back up next week. Yeah, Jesus heals a boy possessed by an impure spirit. Oh, yeah, y'all can't see that my screen. I'm over here looking at that screen, and y'all can't see it. But anyhow, now I'm rambling because I want to talk about the blind man at Bethsaida a little bit more. But we're done. So anyhow, I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to post this. Love you guys. See you next time.